Greetings fanboys and fangirls, Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. And today we're going to be having a look at the 40th anniversary San Diego Comic-Con exclusive He-Man and Skeletor Masterverse 2-pack. Now, it seems like it's taken an eternity for this to ship to me, about 2.5 months from Mattel Creations, but finally here we have it in hand. But before we get started, please be sure to subscribe and of course like the video because it helps us out a whole lot, and be sure to comment at the end. With all that out of the way, let's have a look. To kick things off, we do have this very appealing 40th anniversary shipping box here. It's very much in the same style as the TV 4-pack of the 4 different television He-Men, and it uses that same cool 40th anniversary graphic on the front. We have 2 really cool pencil drawings of He-Man and Skeletor, and they give, for whatever reason, their exact height. And I love how Axel is crediting Alfredo Alcala down here, and I think that that's really nice and very conscientious. Ooh, if you want to find it at Walmart, I'm kidding, you won't find this at retailers, but here's the UPC. And it's cool that they include the credits on the back, something I wish that all of these kinds of sets did. All right, let's pop it open. You know, say what you will about Mattel as a company, and I've certainly said quite a bit, and I'm sure a lot of you all have as well, but there's one thing that they're the absolute kings of down there, and that's packaging. When it comes to special edition or con packaging, I don't think there's any toy company in the business that does it like Mattel. When they do con packaging, they do con packaging, and it's been like this for years. I wonder what it is about the company that makes this such a priority for them. Whatever it is, I love it. I hope they keep it up. However, they are making it difficult for me to throw away boxes. So check this out. We have like kind of this crest here in the front. Absolutely beautiful. This has kind of a clasp. It's magnetic right there. You open it up, and on the inside, woo! These are little things, I guess, to keep it from being damaged. But anyway, we have He-Man and Skeletor, and they're in quite a display. I absolutely love this. It almost looks like a display that you would see at a convention or for some kind of advertising campaign or something. It's like you would open up a comic book and there would be a double-page spread and they would be here. It says, for 40 years, the almighty He-Man and the evil Skeletor have been locked in an epic battle for the power of Grayskull to determine who truly is the master of the universe. So love it, love the red rocks. It's also worth noting that if we pan over a little bit to each side, you can see that the inside of the box has that great kind of wood plank detail. And it really makes this an appealing way to just leave this displayed. As a matter of fact, this may be one of the only times that I leave a Masters product kind of in the packaging. Now, of course, I'm going to get it out, but I mean leave it that way for display primarily. So this may be one of those times that I have this like right in the middle, because this is just such a lovely way to display these guys. But this is collector-friendly packaging, especially because they have a little release ribbon down here. I'm not sure what the proper term for that is, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Those ribbons you pull to take something out, like a cover from a book. So this comes right off. On the back, it's worth noting that there are more of those red rocks, like the bursts that you get. So technically, if you wanted to, I guess you could set it up like this, but because these are concave from the other side, they don't clamp down on this. But you could, you know, leave it like this, I guess. All right, and below the slip cover, we do have a full kind of look at the offering for everything you get. Everything is extremely collector friendly. You're just going to be able to pop everything right back in, no problem whatsoever. First thing you get is reprints of the 2 mini comics or mini books, however you want to say. And it's great to have these. It's definitely been cool to get the new ones and have those kind of follow in the tradition of these. But it really is neat to see these just actually reprinted in full. And it's just really nice. And in the back, you get this cool sketch in honor of Mark Taylor for Skeletor here. And I love that they're giving honor and glory to Mark Taylor. Now, you'll notice that this is like a foam material here, and I like that. It's flexible enough to where it can hold things in place. I think the one thing I'm concerned about is it's kind of a tight fit on this. It doesn't look like there's much damage. There's maybe a little tiny bit of warpage on the side here, but it is something to note. And yeah, I may be leaving these out because I feel like that they might get warped up in there. You can see here that we have kind of a guide to all the different things in Masters in the middle. I think that's cool. And on the back, we have another one of those sketches of Skeletor. And in the front, I failed to say earlier that they had a He-Man that was in honor of Mark Taylor. What a great little touch and a great way to honor the man's life and legacy. So here we have our two figures. Now you'll see right away that these little plastic trays are in the foam trays, and you can just pull these out. He-Man is in there with these little plastic ties. You know what I'm talking about. We see them all the time. So you just simply have to pull those out. So we'll look at He-Man first here. Right away, you can tell that in comparison to the other one that I'd reviewed just a few days ago, which it's really funny how close in proximity that I ended up getting these, the standard release from Target, and of course this being the box set release. And on the left here, we have the standard retail release. And on the right here, we have the box set release. You can tell right away, just from looking at them, that there's a few key differences. For one, I think that the paint on the body is pretty well the same. They're both using that airbrushed kind of option that they decided to go with. There's a little bit more highlighting on the hair up here, which I think does make quite a good difference. Over here, it's a little more just monotone, but over here you actually see the paint highlights. Faces are pretty similar, but this face has a little more like blush and kind of, I guess, spray on it, and this one doesn't have quite as much. One of the main differences are the harness. And you can see here in the harness that it is like a silver. It's meant to be shiny. And over here it's the dull gray. Moving on down the belts, this has more of a metallic kind of look to it in the box set, whereas this is more of the flat orange. And you'll see this also carried over with the bands here on the wrists. Now, one of the biggest differences is the loincloth section. You can see mine is a little bent where I've had the legs up. He's been in a dynamic display, but that'll eventually, I guess, be unwarped. But this is actually flocked here, and I really like the look. I do think you sacrifice some of the depth, and it's a little hard to notice it's flocked from a distance, but I still think that's a really cool touch. Same thing with the boots down here, and you can see the difference between them. Again, you lose some of that deep paint detail, and some of the paint hits are a little different on the boots, with these not being quite as dark, which is good because you lose some of the darkness up here on this fur, and you don't want it to kind of mismatch. One of the areas that's pretty much the same is the bracer right here, and you can see that they both use that kind of weird shiny paint. From the back, it's exactly as you might expect. I won't be spending a tremendous amount of time on this guy because if you want to see more about him, you can simply check out my review of this guy because it is the exact same figure, save for some visual differences. However, I will show you some of the accessories that he includes. One of the biggest differences are the accessories. And you can see this shield is not only metallic looking, but it's also made of a die-cast metal with a construction completely different on this side because this has to kind of screw into it, and there's some bolts down there to keep it together, and the same setup with the little strap and the handle. So this is really cool, a little bit more weight to it, and overall much nicer than the other shield, which looked like this. You can see how much fancier this is in comparison to this looking so dull and plastic-like. So this is much better. Thankfully, the shield isn't so heavy that it weighs the arm down to where he can't hold it up, so that's not a problem. Here's another cool metal accessory, and it's this awesome axe. It's He-Man's battle axe, and if you remember, I bemoaned that the other one looked so plasticky, but this one really fixes that up, and it's so metallic and shiny, and it just looks spectacular. And here He-Man is with the axe. He looks terrific. And here is the power sword, looking so much better than the one that was included with the standard release. This one's actually kind of die-cast metal, and it's also really, really shiny. And one thing that's really interesting about this, it is not the same sculpt as the other one. Let me show you. You can see pretty easily that the blade is extremely similar, but if you look at the handle, they're completely different. This being more of your classic power sword that just has the slick handle, this being the one with all the like wraps on it and everything. I have no idea why, if they were going to tool this one, why they wouldn't have changed this one to that as well, because I think this would have been much more classic. Now it doesn't matter to me anymore because I'm just going to use this one, but still, I mean, I think all of them should be like this. And again, it does have some added weight, but it's definitely not so weighty that it brings down the arm at all. He can easily still hold it, especially when it comes to him holding it aloft and saying those famous words. And in case anyone cares at this point, he does include the 2 standard alternative hands that we always see with He-Man releases. This time the overspray is a lot more even than they were on the hands that we saw in the previous one. The other one, it looked like George Hamilton on one side and Carrot Top on the other. This is definitely more in line with more of an even paint coat. And of course, now we come to the reason most people purchase this set: to get some jewelry. Okay, well, that's probably not the reason you purchase this set, but still, I did want to show you this. This is pretty awesome. It is kind of partially, it feels like there's maybe some kind of die-cast metal component to it. I'm not 100% sure what's plastic and what's die-cast here, but it looks cool. You can see the power swords on each side. I guess they represent the 2 halves of the power sword. You can see what is kind of like Castle Grayskull on the front, and this is cool. It actually hinges open, and on the inside you can see the 40th anniversary logo with a tiny little He-Man. Kind of hard to see there. Interestingly, it does have a transparent red so that you can pipe light in through these eyes. I'm not sure, you can sort of see it happening there, but I'm not sure what situation that would work in, because most of the time it's going to be closed. But word of warning, this won't hardly go over my ring finger, because of course I wanted to start wearing this instead of my wedding ring and then just see what my wife would say. But for a pinky ring, there you go. It definitely works for my pinky. That's it though. It ain't going on your other fingers. And be careful. I tried to put it on my ring finger and almost couldn't get it off because these aren't very flexible. So watch out for that. Okay, now we come to the real reason why someone may be buying this set. And that would be old Skeletor right here. The first part of the review, I tried to keep fairly brief because, of course, we're going to be focusing on this, the new and exclusive figure that you can only get in this set. So now we'll switch to more of a standard review style. And here he is, everybody's favorite drunk uncle and just a hoot to have at parties, Skeletor. Now this, of course, is the 40th anniversary Skeletor. He uses a whole lot of the same body construction and parts as the new He-Man does. So you can tell right here with the torso and the abdomen section how those are the same pieces, same arms, and very similar legs, I think. There are some brand new pieces, such as his harness here, the loincloth cover that goes over the standard He-Man loincloth, and down here with the monster feet boots. You can also see that, of course, this is a brand new head sculpt for Skeletor, meant to look like the original figure. Overall, I have to say, I am very satisfied with this look for Skeletor. I think that they really nailed those classic kind of proportions. I think that everything lines up correctly when you look at the size, the bulk, just everything is the way it should be to recreate that classic action figure. I think the head sculpt does a really good job of looking like the original toy and having more of that painted on face look, because that is a part of Skeletor and his classic appearance, and it kind of has a little bit of that gloss to it, which is also true to that original figure. You know, in Masters of the Universe Classics, we would see some pretty detailed sculptures from the Four Horsemen for Skeletor's face, and that always was just a beautiful update to the character. It's really just more of a matter of preference and not really one being better than the other. I do appreciate that all the little bolts that usually go unpainted, like down here, do get painted in this release. So I really do like that. Even on the back, you can see some of that detail come forward. Up here, there's all kinds of great paint work because you can see some great wash work. You see that they actually did go to the trouble of adding some metallic paint to the bones and painting the jewel in the middle. You can also see that there is a little bit of wear and tear on the loincloth kind of sections on the front. You can see those little scratches. And they've done a great job of recreating the monster feet. Articulation is pretty much exactly like the He-Man and practically any other Masterverse figure. The head goes kind of down a little bit, but not up very much. You can go left and right. You can go side to side, a little bit of forward and back, but it's not quite as much as I would want. With the arms, you get plenty of motion like this where you can go above 90. You can go all the way around, and the shoulder pads don't really inhibit that because they're so flexible. You can see that there's a cut there. There's a double joint right there. There is a rotation and hinges at both wrists. There is a waist cut. He can do the splits very well. The loincloth will inhibit this a little, but thanks to these cuts right here, you can see that he's able to kick out decently. I would love if he could go a little bit more, but I think that's pretty good. Double joints at the knees, and at the upper thighs you do have a rotation at the boot, and down here there are hinges right here at both ankles and plenty of ankle rocker pivot. That just means that you can get Skeletor into those really wide poses, and he's a lot more stable. And although I almost forgot to show it, believe it or not, this Skeletor has opening jaw action. This is so funny. And what's great is that there's a lot more range than I expected there to be. You can really get the mouth open like a great deal like this. And it looks really funny. I like it. So he can freak out about He-Man or whatever he needs to do. Closing it back up. And it looks awesome. So I just thought that was a really cool touch. So for accessories, he does include his power sword. It's the same sculpt that we saw with He-Man. Has a little bit of damage right here where it's gotten scuffed a little, but that's okay. You can always go with the other side. Just like He-Man's weapons, these are made out of some sort of die-cast mixture. Not really exactly sure what it is, but it's not heavy enough to inhibit his arm from holding things, which can be a problem with those kinds of accessories. Just like He-Man, he does have weapon storage on the back, so you can easily take his sword and it looks nice like that. And what appears to be an exact reuse sculpt-wise of the new Eternia Havoc staff, this appears to be the exact same thing. The only difference here is that the actual head is made out of that die-cast mixture, but then you have plastic horns. One of them is not super well glued in, so I probably need to go in there and reinforce that. Skeletor does include a couple of alternative hands, which are kind of what you would expect them to be, a fist and a grasping hand. I had a few odd QC issues with mine. Some of them are a little bit bigger deal than others, and I'll let you be the judge. Some of the joints were really tough to free. Like this ankle took forever. You can see why. There's a little bit of residual plastic over there that kind of locked this in. And finally, I'm able to get the hinge to work. I had to heat it up, so just be very careful when you do that. The biggest QC issue I had was this. You can almost see where in the mold something has happened about a section of this upper arm getting stuck, and now there's kind of this gaping area, and it causes it to kind of not want to move the whole way because you have that excess plastic that's kind of getting in the way of that movement. So that's kind of a big issue. All right, guys, just a quick little update video that I filmed after the review. You can actually see here that I've pretty well corrected that issue that I thought would be a bigger deal than it actually turned out to be. Of course, you shouldn't have to correct anything when you pay this much for a set like this, but as you can see, all I had to do was just scrape away some of that excess plastic, which was probably just a little bit of extra plastic that got in the mold. And once I did that with an X-Acto knife and a little bit of hot water, it went back to normal. So hopefully you don't have to do the same thing with yours. And up here, this is the smallest issue of all. I'm a big stickler for this stuff, and I'm a little crazy when it comes to it. You can see this eye is a little more in center, and this eye is a little more over. And it's just a little something I noticed. That's not too big of a deal. So the question must be asked, is this the best Skeletor that you can get? Well, we'll definitely put him up against the usual suspects here. Of course, we have our Masters of the Universe Classics Skeletor, and then we have the new Eternia Skeletor from the Masterverse collection. If you're looking to spend a lot of money, or you have a lot of money to spend, the Four Horsemen's body proportions, I really love what they did with that Masters of the Universe Classics buck, and that's always going to be something that I love. It is my favorite toy line of all time. I like the added detail and like the skull face in terms of the sculpting from the Four Horsemen, so I think this is really hard to beat in terms of overall proportions and presentation. I really do like this for more of your early looking Skeletor, like the Alfredo Alcala kind of Skeletor. I really like that look, like an ancient evil look. I also like that he's a little scrawnier than some of these other guys because I like that look on Skeletor. He's a little bit more like the 2000X Skeletor. And then there's this one in the middle, which is much like I said about He-Man, pretty much your update of the original toy. He had big legs and better articulation and better sculpting. It really depends on what you want. You know, for me, of course, I always like sticking with the original figure, but I'll always love the updates that the Horseman made. So my eye is always going to go to this one as being like the key Skeletor for me in my collection, because I have so many variations of him, and Masters of the Universe Classics is kind of the centerpiece for me. But it's one of those cases where even if I might prefer one, I don't discount the others whatsoever, because we've just been blessed with a ridiculous abundance of great Skeletors this past year. And before 2022, I just would have been like, oh, this all day long, not even close, no contest. But these guys are both legitimate. I definitely think you'll want to get a hold of this, though, especially to go with that new He-Man. So in the end, do I suggest that you pick up this set? Well, that greatly depends on exactly what situation you're in when it comes to getting this set. I think in some ways, this is a great set. I definitely love how they have an early way to get the 40th anniversary Skeletor, and you better believe they're going to release this. Probably some kind of difference in the deco. Probably won't get maybe the little bolts painted. This might not be metallic on the front. Might just be a flat purple. Same for the Havoc staff and the sword. So unless you're a crazy completist like me, who really loves the presentation of this set, which I think is what you're paying the exorbitant price for, then I don't suggest that you go out of your way to buy this on the secondary market. It's a beautiful set, but unless you're someone like me who's like, oh, that He-Man has flock on it and some minor paint differences, and that vest is shiny, so that means I have to get it. And if you are like me, yeah, you can go out of your way, you can find it, but for more than what it went for originally, that was already a rough price, and this, I wouldn't pay a whole lot more than that. So just be cautious about that. The big takeaways for me is I really enjoyed the upgrades on that He-Man. To me, I probably like the extra washed-in paint details more than the flock on the fur, but I still think the flock is really nice and it seems sturdy. The vest just looking really shiny and cool, and it's really the accessories that are much, much better for this He-Man. For Skeletor, I wasn't so lucky with a few things on QC issues, and I hope that you're lucky and don't get anything like that. But as for me, it's something I can deal with, but something I probably shouldn't have to deal with for the price. The package can't be underestimated when it comes to the value of this set. Like I said, you're paying for a presentation. You're also paying for these beautiful, well-made reprints of those original mini books, mini comics, whatever you want to call them. And this is clearly something that was designed for fans, and it was something that's more about, it's a presentation for fans and less about the content of the actual package. It's great that you get things like the cool ring, but of course these are just little Masters of the Universe luxury items. More exclusives should probably take a cue from this set. They're for the people like me who are just wanting any variation of anything. But they shouldn't just hold something over people's heads as the only way to get it. We all know the Skeletor is going to be available down the pipeline, probably in the same exact presentation as the standard 40th anniversary He-Man in the blue and red packaging. I mean, of course, why wouldn't they do that? Chances are they really ought to consider just doing a whole series like that, at least do the entire 8-pack, if not the whole thing. I think that that's going to be a fantastic new series for them. So even though the Skeletor and He-Man may not necessarily wipe out Masters of the Universe Classics and definitively stand over them as the very best, I don't really think it's about being better or worse. I think it's more necessarily about what these are going for versus what the Classics went for. The Four Horsemen were looking to have the feel of the original figures while giving more of an updated head portraits and things like that, whereas these are more about the articulation and looking like the original toys. So it is definitely a matter of preference. Well, friends, that'll do it for me. I certainly hope that you've enjoyed this extended look at the San Diego Comic-Con He-Man vs. Skeletor 2-pack. Probably overpriced for what you get. You're definitely paying a premium for the incredible presentation and that awesome box. But hey, I did have a blast opening it. I'll definitely enjoy having this on display in my collection. Alright friends, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to like the video because that really helps us out and helps folks who maybe don't otherwise see the channel. And of course, comment down below and let me know what you think of this set, especially if you picked it up yourself. Give me your opinions down below. And as always, God bless you and yours. I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.